everyone. I'm Kimberly Guilfoyle along with Geraldo Rivera, Jesse Waters, Candace Owens, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. It's the story that's sending the country into a frenzy and sparking widespread conversation.
The president has it.
What?
Kanye has it.
What are you talking about?
Dragon energy.
No, stop. Gross.
And instead of focusing on like real issues impacting race in our country, we're focusing on Kanye West, who says it's not about anything of substance. It's just all of a sudden with a record coming out, he likes Donald Trump.
When the president starts bragging about all the things he's done for black folk, Kanye West doesn't represent black people. Listen to All Falls Down. This man has been lost for years.
The African Americans are predominantly Democrat, and anytime somebody breaks from that orthodoxy, they tend to become a target.
We have the right to independent thought, and I independently think that Kanye has lost his mind.
I think it's weird. I think it's disappointing to me.
Remember Yeah, I love it. All right, the media even asking Sarah Sanders about it at the White House press briefing.
Kanye West has been in the news lately for supporting the president and expressing his admiration for the president.
Covering all range of topics.
Right. I'm curious whether the president has reached out to Kanye West and whether he'd be willing to meet with him at the White House.
I know they met during the transition. That's the only meeting I'm aware of that's taken place or conversation. Before everybody has a meltdown.
President Trump also weighing in this week.
He sees that stuff, and he's smart. And he says, you know what? Trump is doing a much better job than the Democrats did.
And President Trump commenting again today, Kanye West has performed a great service to the black community. Big things are happening and eyes are being opened for the first time in decades. Legacy stuff. Thank you also to Chance and to Dr. Daryl Scott. They really get it. Lowest black and Hispanic unemployment in history. And this all started with one 7-word tweet last Saturday. I love the way Candace Owens thinks. That single tweet created a media frenzy and could be leading to a cultural shift. But The Five has a very interesting update. Candace predicted this would happen over a year ago.
I first said, if you understand Kanye West, then you can understand the movement of Donald Trump. Like, it's funny to me that people can't correlate that. It's very similar. It's just anti-political correctness.
All right, and joining us today, special guest on The Five, Candace Owens. Wonderful to have you here with us. We've been talking about you, and now we can speak with you.
Finally, right? I've been hearing a lot of this chatter.
Yeah. So you predicted this a year ago, and now you become part of this cultural shift.
Right. That's exactly right. Look, I could be a little biased. I love the way Candace Owens thinks as well. But this is really bizarre. And I knew that it was going to be Kanye West to sort of break through this matrix and this group thought on the left, because the one thing that he advocates the most for in his music is independence. And that, to be quite frank, that is now a position on the right. To be a conservative means that you allow independent thinking. They do not allow that on the left whatsoever. So it's curious to see. This is the beginning of what is going to be a very interesting time in Black America.
Yeah, and Greg, when this first happened, we talked about it here, obviously, on The Five, and you say, wait, something's going on here. This seems to be a cultural shift. You didn't feel it was like a publicity stunt or anything like that.
Well, it's, you know, people will call you a hypocrite if you say, well, you know, when celebrities talk politics, you tell them to shut up because what do they know? You're an actor, just act. But this is different because this comes with a cost. It comes with a cost to his reputation, to his fan base, and to album sales. When people say he's doing this to promote album sales, they don't know his fan base because this is going to hurt him. So he didn't choose the typical cuddly issue that would get him love and props, like climate change or bullying or gun control. He chose the most harmful issue, the most divisive issue, which is putting his arms around President Trump. So that takes a lot of guts. And I do think it reflects, you were on Dave Rubin's show there. You're seeing a change also in the intellectual dark web, as they call it. These shows like Dave Rubin, Sam Harris, Scott Adams, Joe Rogan. People are seeking another place to find the truth because they're tired of the narrative. And I think this is part of that.
I think you overstate the
I'm trying to overstate it, Geraldo.
President Trump got 8%.
Geraldo's saying you're overstating something. That's a first.
Here's a fact. I cop to that, but here's a fact. President Trump got 8%. 8% of the African-American vote, which was a bit of a spike from what Mitt Romney got, 6%. You know, race and politics, you know, race is politics, politics is race in this country. Van Jones, the CNN commentator, said on election night that this was white lash. There was white lash on one side, and there was, you know, people of color on the other side. I think that the ferocity of the reaction to Kanye West's support of President Trump and of you, Candace, is a measure of that.
I agree, because you're saying Romney was at 6%, Trump's at 8%. If you can go to 10% for a Republican candidate nationally, that brings all different kinds of counties in play. And with the country divided the way it is, I mean, that razor margin could really have a significant impact. Before we start, I want to get one thing clear. What show did you do, Candace, first on Fox News?
Before Kanye tweeted me, it was Water's World that saw me, so I do have to give them a little bit of credit here.
Establish that. Also, on behalf of Juan Williams, I'd like to say I'm sorry.
I wish he was here today.
I wish, yeah, we all wish Juan was here today.
He's some really nasty.
I beg your pardon.
I put a hurt on him. He's still recovering.
Yeah, he's got some bruises. I would say one thing. I think Kanye and Donald Trump have so much in common besides the dragon energy. Right. They both thrive on controversy. They're both very egotistical. They're both loved and they're both hated. They both kind of drive their supporters crazy, but they also make their supporters dance. And he says that this isn't political, Kanye. He says it's not about Republican, it's not about Democrat, it's about independent thought. And I agree with that. I don't think he's, you know, thinking about the black unemployment or some of the things that Trump has done for the black community. But if you do think about the policy, I don't think that Trump has hurt African Americans in this country. If you look at food stamps are down, shootings are down in Chicago, historic low black unemployment. Things are not terrible in the black community as a result of Donald Trump's policies.
President Trump, first of all, there is a real thing called dragon. I mean, dragon energy is real. Trump's a movie star. Kanye West is a movie star. There are others who have that.
Do you have that? It's in your mustache.
I do.
It's a little in the mustache.
But President Trump, during the campaign, did some things that really were egregious from the point of view of African Americans and other minorities. When he feigned ignorance of David Duke. I don't know David Duke. I have to research it. When he was busted in the South Carolina primary. When he, in the Charlottesville neo-Nazi march, when he equated the two sides and said there were good people on both sides.
That was the extreme left with the extreme right. 100%.
Right, but when it comes to neo-Nazis, you've got to be unequivocal in your condemnation.
No. You have to be. It's Antifa versus the KKK.
I said to the president, face to face, that I thought that he needed to reach out. And I looked around and everybody in Mar-a-Lago was white. And I said, you need some black faces here. I think that that's a reality. And he has to face it. There is a structural problem with race and politics in this country. Donald Trump, because he has dragon energy, because he is this independent thinker, because he is so charismatic in his own way, has the ability, I think, to bust out of that 8%.
Right. Candace, let me talk to you about this, because really in terms of this cultural shift and what's going on here, I think what you know, minority women, conservative women like yourself, like myself, take offense to is when some cultural elites trying to tell us what we should think, what we should believe, our ideology, whether we're on the right track or, you know, we're just delirious to even support a president or support conservatives or Republicans. And it's pretty much what Kanye is saying. He's pushing back against that sort of very polarizing thinking that tries to put people in boxes and stigmatize you if you don't agree with what they think is right.
Correct. It's monolithic thinking, and that's what I've always been punching back against, because at the end of the day, it doesn't always even make sense. What you bring up doesn't make sense to me when you say he needs to have some more black faces. That means nothing. We saw that with President Obama. He had every black artist in the White House for photo ops, and at the end of the day, Chicago was worse off after 8 years of Obama in office. So I don't need to see a black face. I need to see black results. I mean, I find it insulting to me that people say, well, let me pander and let you know we've got Beyonce and Jay-Z on stage, so I'm with her. No, I'm not with her. Her husband locked up more black men than any president in the history of the United States. So you're exactly right. I find that to be always an uphill challenge to say to somebody, I've researched.
No, Clinton.
Bill Clinton. Yeah, her husband. Hillary's
No, but that's
husband.
true. The statistics, former prosecutor, I'll tell you, you can see that in terms of the number and a record level of incarcerations of black Americans. So, you know, there's points to be made here with specific facts to support all of these, you know, these theories that people are saying, wait a second, what's going on in this country that all of a sudden there's a groupthink that's trying to pollute your mind, that doesn't respect someone's individuality or, you know, freedom of thought or expression?
Right, and that's what I always say is the truth is that the Democratic Party views us as low information voters. That's why they give us Beyonce and Jay-Z. They don't think we're going to go research the stats, that we're monitoring that sort of a thing. That's why when Hillary Clinton was on these black hip hop shows, she was talking about having hot sauce in her bag. Don't talk to me about hot sauce in your bag. You know, talk to me about the issues that are facing our community. So I'm greatly insulted by the fact, by people, Geraldo, you saying that, oh, well, there should be just more black faces. No, there needs to be more black conversation.
Well, I disagree with that.
Black people to Mar-a-Lago. Make Greg enough to this, please.
I think that. Oh, what'd you say? Greg first.
No, I think that it goes beyond politics.
But diversity is something that's real.
Yeah, I guess.
Symbols and reality sometimes are the same.
But the ultimate result from the hyper-diversity is identity politics, in which you're seeing. You're not seeing the individual anymore. You're seeing the group, and I think that's what Kanye. Why he connected with you was he was seeing an individual talking about being an individual, not extolling the group identity, which has become so noxious that we're putting the quickest way to fascism is to put the group before the individual. But I'm hoping with Candace and looking at Kanye is that now that you have this power, what do you do with it? It's about persuasion. It's not, it's like you actually won. Now it's time to win converts. And that means being persuasive, which means not for going for shock value, but wanting to connect with people who disagree with you. And that's what, when you saw Kanye and John Legend going at it, you saw two people actually using love because they admire each other while they deeply disagreed over Trump, and it worked.
And what I think is happening now is the media, instead of covering the granular conversation here, they're trying to discredit Kanye West because they don't want to talk about Chicago under Barack Obama. You'd think that CNN, when Kanye West comes out and says something that's shocking. I mean, it's not news if Kanye had said something bad about President Trump.
No,
that would not have been news, but CNN would have covered that all day long. Instead, he says something nice about President Trump, and CNN, and I watched it, either buried it or tried to discredit Kanye. So they're not being fair with the way the news is being presented because they don't want to have the conversation.
I absolutely agree, but the fact of the matter is black unemployment is at record lows, Hispanic unemployment is at record lows. That's the message that the Republican Party has to convey to the inner city. That's Darrell Scott in Cleveland, my neighbor and friend, gets it.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
You know, Republican ideas are sometimes better than Democratic ideas. The Democratic establishment that has ruled decades of the inner city has, presided over the Camdens and the
Well, that's the thing. It's the idea of persuasion, like you said, Greg, and, Candace, you being part of that. And so, like, a friend of mine said, instead of the Brexit, the Blacksit movement, meaning it's okay to be black and proud and conservative and a free thinker. That was my friend, Raheem Kassan. All right. Good job, Candace. While most of us were sleeping last night, something big happened. The threat of nuclear war lowered as the two Koreas made a pact to end their war of more than half a century. Our reflections on that magnificent milestone next. Stay with us.
Remember all that flap about President Trump starting a nuclear war with North Korea because of his tough rhetoric? He may soon go down in history as the U.S. president who was actually able to help avert nuclear war. Overseas overnight, there were smiles, handshakes, hugs, peace talks, and denuclearization talks between two longtime adversaries, North and South Korea. Even the president's loudest critics are praising him for bringing Kim Jong-un to the table.
So I think the president deserves credit for getting us this far. No president has put as much pressure on North Korea as Donald Trump has, and that's a good thing.
Mr. Trump is very pleased by the developments and had a lot to say about it today.
It's never gone like this. It's never gone this far. I don't think it's ever had this enthusiasm for them wanting to make a deal. It had a different kind of a leader. We're not going to be played, okay? The United States in the past was played like a fiddle. Money going in and nobody knew what was happening. The day after an arrangement was made, if you call it a deal, I doubt it, but an arrangement was made. They start with the nuclear weapons again. That's not happening to us. We will, I think, come up with a solution. And if we don't, we leave the room with great respect.
All right, so Geraldo, many men fought in the Korean War. Their fathers or their grandfathers fought in the Korean War. And then to see those images today of those two leaders shaking hands, just an astonishing historical development, no matter what happens after that.
The Puerto Rican battalion suffered grievously in the Korean War. The Borinqueños,
Yes.
they were decimated north of the DMZ. It is an amazing sight to see. I've been around the block a few times. You know, I can be skeptical, even cynical sometimes. This is the real deal, it seems to me. President Trump has played it exactly right. I am heartened by these images to see these symbolic gestures. He comes over the line and the other guy goes over the line. They shake hands, President Moon and Kim. I think that this is a fabulous development now. The president is a realist. But this is Donald Trump at his best.
Yeah, and he's going to continue to exert maximum pressure, Kimberly, on the North until you achieve a specific peaceful victory. With that said, could you imagine if these talks were happening under Barack Obama? They'd probably have to give him a second Nobel Peace Prize.
They give like 3 consecutive ones in a row. They couldn't stop. They're like, this is the most amazing president of all time. But they should, the mainstream media should give President Trump credit here for what he's been able to accomplish. He was a disruptor. He was an unconventional candidate. People counted him out. He ran against 16 people and was able to take each one of them down. And now, achieving something that everyone thought was really not going to be attainable in terms of our lifetime, to see Kim Jong-un. No one was able to bring his father Kim Jong-il to the table, to the negotiating table. And fair enough that the South Korean president said this is due to President Trump, and said that even on CNN. I know Nigel Farage tweeted about it. That is priceless, because there you go. There's the truth, and let it be heard loud and clear. And when you see these images and you have a front row seat like this to American political history and international history with Korea, this is unbelievable, and it's a great moment, and no one can really say that this isn't incredibly auspicious for the future and to come internationally.
And but not everybody on CNN can give the president credit. This was an actual headline on CNN.com, Greg. Meet Kim Jong-un's sister, widely seen as instrumental in making the summit happen.
Of course. Look,
That's the sister.
You have to understand that it's going to be really hard for a lot of people to get through this presidency when there are successes, because they actually can't handle it. So, they will fulminate over Trump's, phoning into Fox and Friends. They will talk about how he only got Melania a birthday card. As this guy made 7.6 billion people's lives safer through the destruction of ISIS, and perhaps cautiously optimistic what happens here. It's funny how the emblem of the Trump administration is the handshake, which is a salesman's, kind of the salesman's move. But if you think about Macron and you think about the handshake and what it matters for a salesman and President Trump, and that this is a handshake, and no one thought that this person that is supposed to cause so much divisiveness is so evil. Just months ago, we were going to have a nuclear war with North Korea.
Right.
It turns out this is his negotiating strategy. He turns the table over, starts over, and then all of a sudden, everybody's shaking hands. Meanwhile, the networks act like they're so surprised it's breaking news. It's because they were in denial.
Correct.
And you wouldn't have got this with Hillary Clinton. She couldn't even fire Huma Abedin.
Oh my gosh, I know.
That would have elected her if she had fired Huma Abedin.
Because then, Anthony,
That's true.
the
Then
albatross
the Wiener emails maybe not have seen the light of day.
Yes.
Way to bring it back to Wiener, Greg.
You know it.
Always manage to do that.
I do.
7 shows in a row.
I'm working on a book.
Candace, we do want to be cautious, though, because the Hermit Kingdom has messed with the Americans many times, and at the last second, they always pull out and nuke back up. But you got to keep that in the back of your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do need to be a tiny bit cautious. But look, this is tremendous. It feels amazing, especially as a Trump supporter. We have been the ones that are screaming at CNN as they use this hyperbolic language. Every other day, the world is ending because of a Trump tweet. By the way, this has been the year of the tweet, right? One tweet really has caused a lot across the board. But it's a feel-good thing.
Fire and Fury or Candace Owens? Right? What do you think is bigger?
They're interchangeable.
Right, exactly. But we knew this. We knew that Trump was going to step into office and be fearless and be strong, and that is exactly what America needed at this time. We could not have another Barack Obama. And if Barack Obama had done this, you are correct, they would have his face into Mount Rushmore by now.
All right, well...
there were fomenting.
I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Right?
All right, ahead, the stunning answer Jim Comey gave Bret Baier last night when he asked him about the Dirty Dem dossier. I couldn't believe it. Right back.
Former FBI Director James Comey raising eyebrows during an interview with our Bret Baier. Comey claiming somewhat bizarrely that he does not consider the memo that he leaked to his law professor friend to be a real leak because it was not an official government document.
And I didn't consider it part of an FBI file, all the things I talked about with Anderson.
You wrote it as an FBI director. It was a work product.
No, it was not. It was my personal aide to memoir.
You were talking to the president?
Sure.
You said in the memos, I said, I don't do sneaky things, I don't leak, I don't do weasel moves. But, I mean, we can argue what a leak is, but that's a leak, isn't it?
It's not.
Bret did a great job. The former FBI director also claiming that he still does not know for sure who funded the anti-Trump dossier.
When did you learn that the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign had funded Christopher Steele's work?
Yeah, I still don't know that for a fact.
What do you mean?
I've only seen it in the media. I never knew exactly which Democrats had funded. I knew it was funded first by Republicans, opposed to Donald.
But that's not true.
I'm sorry?
That's not true. That the dossier that Christopher Steele worked on was funded by Republicans?
The president responded on Twitter, is everybody believing what is going on? James Comey can't define what a leak is. He illegally leaked classified information but does not understand what he did or how serious it is. He lied all over the place to cover it up. He's either very sick or very dumb. Remember Sailor. That last Sailor, that's a reference to Christian Saucier, the sailor convicted of illegally taking photos inside his nuclear sub. He was pardoned last month by President Trump. So, Kimberly, you think the president is, by referencing the sailor, threatening Comey with an espionage rap?
Well, listen, but the president is right, you know, in terms of what he's talking about here. If you look at all the facts and the information we have about James Comey, he has lied. He is a leaker. Those were classified documents. If they weren't, then why did the FBI ask Richmond and ask Patrick Fitzgerald to bring all copies back and return them to the FBI? He was playing cute and fast with it, sneaky, very weasel-like, by saying, oh, I'm going to take the information, not the actual document, and then put the contents in. He knew exactly what he was doing. He's not only was he head of the FBI, he was an attorney, former prosecutor. So guess what? He knows the law, and he chose to disregard it. He thought that he was going to get away with it and personally profit. And I think in terms of the investigation and what was going on then, this is somebody that also is looking at potential charges of obstruction of justice as well as mishandling classified documents. Wait till the IG report comes out from the Inspector General. He should be very concerned, not to mention the fact that he very much compromised the Mueller investigation because he came out with a book and self-promotion and all of these different statements, and he's doing all of these interviews, which could be inconsistent statements, the things that are coming out in that investigation, which actually is going to benefit President Trump, the person you were trying to hurt.
How can the top cop in the FBI not know who funded the dossier at this stage of the game?
I don't know if I actually believe him. So he tells ABC that it wasn't necessary to tell Trump when he briefed him who was behind funding the dossier. And then he tells Bret Baier that he doesn't really know for sure that Hillary funded the dossier. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all. He's the head of the FBI. Of course he's going to know who funded the dossier, unless he didn't want to know it. And he says it wasn't really important who funded the dossier. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Secondly, the thing that jumped out, he said the dossier wasn't a critical part of the FISA warrant. Are you kidding me? His number two, McCabe, said it was the most crucial part of the dossier, and Nunes and Grassley both looked at the application and said it was the centerpiece of the dossier. It was the centerpiece of the FISA application. So someone's lying. I mean, McCabe's a liar, Comey's a liar. I don't know what's going on.
And Comey had to sign off on that as well. There's a number of people that had to go ahead and authorize the use of that information in the FISA warrant. Correct. So you know what? The facts speak for themselves.
He also says that Bret did a nice job, and he asked, who knows more about the dossier, the Obama team or the Trump team? And he goes, oh, they know about an equal amount. Comey knew. Clapper knew, Brennan knew, Obama's White House chief of staff. They all knew about the dossier. Trump didn't know anything. He didn't even know Hillary funded it. He's a liar.
In terms of your philosophy, Candace, about the prejudice in the media, if you watched MSNBC or CNN today, they were all leading with the Russian spy. The informant is a Russian spy. Trump was saying the House Intelligence Committee has now exonerated me. There was no collusion. And yet the Trump detractors are really hitting hard on the fact that they are trying to keep alive the Russian investigation. How
Well,
do you
of
feel?
course, because this is classic foot and mouth syndrome, right? You spent all year plus telling everybody that this is what you've got. Trump is definitely guilty. This is why you shouldn't have voted for him. And they're starting to realize that they were wrong. And by the way, they're not starting to realize this. They always knew they were wrong. They were trying to assist in obstructing this president's first year and having this weight on his back for something that was ultimately just not true. What Comey's doing now, he's walking back, he's walking forward, he's walking sideways, because at the end of the day, he may have just implicated himself. And I absolutely agree, Kimberly, you hit the nail on the head. Jesse, you hit the nail on the head. He's in some hot water right now, and he's nervous because he shouldn't have been writing this book in the first place.
I'm not so sure, because the book manuscript was cleared by the FBI prior to publication.
It's just not a good.
No, it's not a good.
You didn't have to force the point.
It's not a good look.
I'm not saying it's illegal, but it's just not a good look, and it's not a good idea.
I think that Comey, though, has taken some real sharp blows and still, has not been routed.
I think last night was a rout.
Yeah.
And I think a great interview exposes contradictions. He contradicted himself, and that didn't show up in any of the interviews. I would forward a link to that interview to George Stephanopoulos with a little note that says, "This is how it's done, son." I think his book publishing company made a really good decision by keeping Brett for last.
Yeah.
Because if he had done that interview first when the book came out, it would have been a disaster for Comey, because all the subsequent interviews would have to be as tough or tougher, because they'd go, wow, they'd have to replicate Brett Baier, who truly was a bear.
He was a bear. He was fantastic and smart, and he asked questions.
Great hair.
As if he was a lawyer. I know.
He has great hair as well.
Fantastic. And you know what?
I think he
Comey
works
didn't
out.
want to go and do that interview
His hair
first,
works
because Brett's the one that asked the tough questions and actually pinpointed him on some of the legal issues. And there was just like shock and awe, astonishment on Comey's face, because he was so evasive. He couldn't even answer the question.
And he was late.
didn't he?
Wait, let's not
And he was
forget.
late.
He was late for the interview. And the thing is, no one's ever late for an interview for their book. If you're selling books, you're never late. So that was.
You try and get credit.
No, but I gotta say, this was a gimmick in order to put Baier off his game, because he thought he could shave a few minutes off the interview and make him uncomfortable, and it actually probably made Brett a little bit angrier.
Fake news lateness?
He made him an angry bear. An angry bear.
In Stephanopoulos' defense, he was the first, and he was hearing things that were shocking from the mouth of an FBI director.
It's easy to
Talking
shock
about
George.
a sitting president was outrageous.
Well,
Is it legal to be kicked out of a bar for your politics? A judge just put down the gavel on that one. The verdict next.
I, like many other Americans, support President Trump, and that makes a lot of folks on the left uncomfortable. A man was kicked out of a bar last year for wearing a MAGA hat. He sued for discrimination, but he just lost his case. The judge said the law doesn't protect people from political discrimination. Kimberly, as a former prosecutor,
Yes.
what is your take on this conclusion?
you know, I think it's wrong and correct. I would take this all the way up to the high court, go to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'm not kidding, I would appeal it, because I think it's important. It's an issue involving speech, and I would say that the fact that he has that political expression, speech should be protected. You can't tell me that I can't go in to say, hashtag women rule, or, I'm for gender rights, or whatever, and then they're going to kick me out of a bar. Greg, I can understand someone kicking me out. But in this sense, why should he be prevented from, if he's not disturbing anybody, there isn't any other kind of
That's the
technicality
key.
that way.
He was.
But they try to then say, well, it's a disturbing the peace, which is like an infraction. Now, if you actually got in a fight over something, then that's one thing. But just to wear something should be protected in this country under free speech and First Amendment.
I hear you, Jesse. What do you think? Political discrimination, good for business, bad for business?
Well, what's this, the West Village, Greg? So, probably you're going to have a lot of patrons coming in after they won the suit just to drink at the bar that kicked out the Trump supporter.
A guy wears a Trump hat to a village bar.
I mean, listen, obviously asking for trouble. He knew what he was getting into, and that's fine. And he's allowed to do that. I mean, I haven't gotten kicked out of a bar in weeks, so for me, it's hard to fathom. But I think the guy knew what he was getting into.
Right. So what do you think, Greg? Is this a very slippery slope that we're sitting on here?
Absolutely not. The bar is a sacred place. I spend more time in bars than I do at home, and I always side with the small businessman. A lot of facts are being left out. He wasn't kicked out. He spent over $200 at the bar, 17 drinks. He was with his friends. He was there a long time. You know how this happens in a bar, and you always have to side with the owner of the bar. Somebody gets louder, I know this, gets more obnoxious, and then they're mad when they're asked to leave. He left a 20% tip on a $186 bill, and then he gets mad, and then he does something that everybody should hate. He sued. I hate people who sue over small and petty things. They make me sick. Even if he was right, and he's not. It's petty to sue. It clogs up the court system. It's a stunt. You should have just stopped being a drunken jerk.
And the lawyer that took this
Were you
case
there?
should be ashamed.
Yes, I was there. I was him.
What do you think, Geraldo?
Well, I
Is this a
think that
political stunt?
if I wore a New York Football Giants hat into a Philadelphia bar, let's see how I would fare. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I think you'd fare pretty well. I've seen you box.
Thank you. But the total legal stunt. Total legal stunt.
But you guys are missing
and the
the
judge
point.
dismissed it almost contemptuously.
Well,
You
whatever.
can discriminate against political speech. That's what the judgment was. It wasn't really, and the guy was trying to make it into a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
I think you're all wrong, with all due respect, except for Candace, because she agrees with me. The women rule right now. We're going to concur, because I actually think there is an important free speech here. If you wanted to separate the facts out about how much he tipped, I really don't care. I'm talking about the fact
I
that
stick
you
to the
can wear-
facts.
Right. No,
I
that you
stick
can
to the
wear a
facts.
hat, or you can wear a T-shirt, or you can wear whatever you want to say your political
It's my
opinion
business.
or expression.
I own my business. I can kick people out.
What if
there you
Kanye
go.
walks into the bar with the hat? Is that
There you
allowed?
go. No, it's your business. It's your business. You can kick
Go to a
people.
bar in
Remember, we have the
Auburn
same
with an
argument with
Alabama hat.
cake baking. So don't be a hypocrite.
Oakland Raiders.
Be a
LA
libertarian.
Cake baking.
But there's definitely an argument to be made that it's the legal precedent that's being
Yeah.
said here that is the concern, not so much whether or not the guy was right
Yeah.
in filing the lawsuit. It's just, I think,
if it's my bar and somebody's making my bar uncomfortable, bugging me, I'm going to ask you to leave, especially since they're probably going to leave anyway after spending $200.
But at least a Trump guy's a tipper.
Yes.
What if we can take that away?
What if they ruled that only Republicans in a bar, only Democrats in a bar, only liberals in a bar, only
That's called
There are
the
a lot of
Upper East
bars.
Side.
All right, guys. Well, stay right there because it is Fan Mail Friday when the 5 returns.
Yes, Fan Mail Friday. We have your questions. Let's not waste any time. All right, this is from Karen Koloski. What a great question this is, and I'm going to you, Candace. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume you had done? Brilliant question.
This is a really brilliant question. Let's see. I feel like they would think that I had to be defending myself, some sort of a physical assault. Because I'm constantly on these campuses, these college campuses with Turning Point USA. We got Black Lives Matter protesters shouting at us, playing Beyonce music, and they get really aggressive. And it really is like a measure in your patience to sit there and go, I'm going to let this person shout at me and call me names and get really close to my face. So it would probably be something ridiculous, like an on-campus.
I happen to enjoy that, though. Jesse,
I'm going to go with drunk and disorderly.
Wait, didn't that
no,
happen?
at least he doesn't even sugarcoat it. Geraldo?
Definitely a bar fight. I've been there, done that.
Geraldo and I will get arrested together.
I broke the window at Elaine's once. So.
Did you really? Is that what closed it down? No, I'm just kidding.
Kimberly?
I would have to say, just in true brawler fashion, it would be a physical attack upon somebody that was with me, or in self-defense.
A crime of
others.
passion.
No, really.
Crime of passions over here.
Oh,
Yes,
God.
exactly.
Or an
That's
interrupted act of passion.
No, not that. I did have to protect
You know what?
myself.
I can actually
before when he
see
was
my
there.
arrest, which is always scary. I can see myself being led off an airplane in handcuffs,
I can
or
see an airplane.
being taped because something mixed with something.
Definitely being removed
Wait, that's almost
from an
happened,
airplane by federal
actually.
marshals.
Exactly. I can just see it, and then a lot of apologizing afterwards.
I'm having a
And that's a federal
flashback.
felony.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
know, I
crime.
know.
Flying with Gutfeld. Remember
Yes.
that? The drink with the pill. With
All
the
right, Lynn Bryan asked this. Oh, this is a fun little question. It's hard.
What?
What's the first movie you remember seeing? Geraldo, was it Gone with the Wind?
God.
You're so mean.
I don't. I used to live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn at the time. My first movies were 4 movies for 25 cents on Broadway in Brooklyn.
You can remember that, but not the first movie.
I really don't remember.
Like,
Kimberly, first movie?
Star Wars.
Oh,
That was your first movie?
Wow.
Well, that I recall.
Kid.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw Star Wars in the theater, and I had to leave before it finished because I got really upset when the mask came off.
You're
I was like 7.
You started crying?
You're so strange.
He is, but remember he also wanted the whole Michael Jackson.
Yes, we had Michael Jackson.
I was very young.
Candace, don't I know you were
Thriller.
born like in the last decade.
No,
so.
but you're going to be surprised here, okay?
Right.
The Sound of Music. I was obsessed with this movie as a child, and I had no idea what it was about. Obviously, I thought it was the happiest movie ever. Just, children dancing and singing. So to this day, it's still one of my favorite movies.
Doesn't the scenery backdrop bother you? The scenery?
How about the Nazis?
No.
You know,
boy.
bed knobs and broomsticks. You guys remember that?
Of course I remember. Are you kidding? When they got on the bed? And
Yes.
I was a huge musical kid. I definitely remember Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. Great, fantastic movie.
Yes.
Gonna watch it when
And
I get home.
I remember waiting in line for that at the Hillsdale Cinema 21 in San Mateo. All right, pulled a little Geraldo there.
Bay Area shout out.
Facebook question from Michelle Ray. If you were going to author a book based on your life, we know what title would it be? That's
So
actually
glad you brought that up. The Geraldo Show, a memoir.
I knew I didn't even have to say his name.
Shameless plug. Do
Yes.
it.
Is that what it's?
Get it now.
Yeah, it's Geraldo. The
Geraldo Show.
It's a great book.
That is
Great
a
book.
fantastic
Great book.
book.
All right, Jesse, what would be the name of your book?
His
The
unnamed
Gutfeld
one.
monologues. You're welcome. Coming out soon to a bookstore near you.
Oh my God. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Mine is going to be Face to Face with Juan Williams.
Oh my goodness.
That's going to be a short
Which they will
book.
turn into a movie. Yeah.
It's going to be over quickly.
Sounds like a show. It sounds like a show. Hello, Mike Geraldo is my name in it, but making the case how to be your own best advocate. Yes, it is about my life growing up.
Cha-ching.
Yeah.
I'm going to call mine What Happened.
I love it.
Because what happened? Really, what happened?
What is happening?
What is happening?
What is going on?
How did this happen?
How did this happen? One more thing's up next.